This is Mass from a Mass Truth TV, and today is January 30th, 2019. And today we're going to get into the grand solar minimum approaching, a mini ice age, and weather modification. We're going to kind of have a deep talk about this and kind of tie everything together. The grand solar minimum is approaching. Scientists have been talking about this for a very long time. Maybe not very openly in public, but they have been talking about this. The grand solar minimum, this means that there's less sunspots on the sun and the sun will be producing less heat. Now let's get into the story. Sunspots are disappearing more rapidly than usual. As the sun prepares to enter the grand solar minimum, the last time of the absence of the sunspots was so prolonged, there was a little ice age, which happened back in the 1600s. Earth experienced another cold snap. First, understand that the sun normally follows sunspot cycles roughly 11 years. Think of the sunspots as storms on the sun. The cycle starts out with a hot solar maximum littered with solar storms and sunspots. Then the temperature cools and we enter a solar minimum with the decrease in sunspots, and the cycle begins again. However, the current cycle 24, which began in 2008, 2 years late, has been very strange. Its maximum in 2014 was the lowest sunspot peak since the early 1800s. That was followed by years of decreased sunspots until now. This past year, we have gone weeks at a time without a single sunspot on the sun's face. The prior cycle 23 also had an extended period of very few sunspots compared to any cycle this past century. So just from that right there, it seems like over the last century or so that we have been kind of slowing down with this amount of sunspots on the sun. Now we have a stake in the outcome. In an op-ed that accompanied the publication of my book, The Sun's Heartbeat, I wrote in 2011 that global temperatures are now steadily high, that even with the reduced rate of warming, 2010 still managed to join 1998 as the warmest year recorded on record. Now, what does that mean? Not much. We had a couple warm years throughout. Seems like that was the peak of the sunspots. Now, its upcoming solar maximum cycle 24 is normal or robust. I continue, especially if the El Nino follows its 2 years later, as it often happens. The middle of this decade will be the hottest period since humans arrived on Earth. However, if the upcoming maximum is wimpy, as most solar researchers expect, or if the sun is now entering an extended period of low activity with another deep minimum to follow, that is the best thing that it could possibly do for us. Such a scenario would mitigate climate change. That's a big word they've been using a lot. Essentially, the sun has been buying us time. Want to know what happened? Well, cycle 24 has now run its course. Sunspots are vanishing even faster than we expected. Forecasters have been saying for years this would happen as cycle 24 comes to an end. The surprise is how fast. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, agrees, saying solar cycle 24 is declining more quickly than the forecast. So it is going into this cycle faster than they even expected. Now, they made this graph basically showing here. You see at the beginning in 2001, it looked like it's very, very high compared to the peak 11 years later. And it just looks like it's definitely in a decline to me. And definitely something we should be looking out for. Now, how does the sun affect Earth's climate? I think we all know that, but we'll keep reading. This affects us because the Earth's climate gets cooler when there are fewer solar storms. The extreme example happened between 1645 and 1750, when the normal 11-year sunspot cycle vanished. This period, called the Maunder Minimum, was accompanied by bitterly cold winters in the American colonies. Fishing settlements in Iceland and Greenland were abandoned, and icebergs were seen near the English Channel. The canals of Venice froze, and it was a great time of hardship. Now, I just want y'all to think, if anything was to happen like that now, how many people would die? And I've already seen there's places like Boston and stuff like that are already starting to see ice in the ocean and stuff like that. So I mean, this is definitely something that we definitely need to look out for. Now, no one understands why the 11-year sunspot cycle could simply stop for a few human lifetime. Back then, it is strangely coincided with the rule of the French Sun King Louis XIV. There is no way to know if we are really currently on the cusp of a repeat performance. But if this strange recent solar activity means another Maunder minimum is nearly upon us, as the few solar researchers believe, the global cooling would be mitigating the Earth's warming at the best possible time. Now, if you're woke and you know that we're really not going through a Earth is not having global warming, even lately they've been saying climate change because they know that the Earth is not warming. Now, however, if we do have a Maunder minimum, it would not be a return to the Little Ice Age, says a solar radiation expert. Which, how would this lady know? She didn't live in the time back then to even know. And she tried to say that it's 1.8 degrees Fahrenheit warmer now than it was back then. But back then we didn't have records to tell like how we have now. So I really feel like she's pulling this one out of her ass. Then she goes in to say, we'll have to wait and see. For the moment, if you have a leftover solar filter from the last August eclipse, take a glance at the sun these days, you'll see a strange blank disk. Now, that's kind of creepy if you're looking at the sun and you see a blank disk. It doesn't seem like the sun is producing too much. Now, we're going to go over, the actual definition of what the grand solar minimum is and how long it will last. And it basically says the sun follows cycles of 11 years, as we went over, and then a solar minimum. The last time there was a prolonged solar minimum, it may have led to a mini ice age. So basically, the last time that we had a solar minimum, it went into the Maunder minimum, which lasted 70 years. So, I mean, this is something to definitely watch out for a lot. In this top article, it goes in to say that the sunspots were relatively high in 2014, and now they're sliding towards a low point expected in 2019 and 2020. While intense activities such as sunspots and solar flares subside during a solar minimum, that does not mean the sun becomes dull. So it doesn't mean the sun is actually going to get dark or anything like that. It just means the basically solar storms on the surface of the sun are going to die down and the sun will be producing less heat. Now let's go into this other article. Today's lack of sunspots, characteristics of a solar minimum, could bring record low temperatures. Which, what are we getting now? Record low temperatures, as we can go into this article. Where we go? Right here, where we go, as you see here, hold on. Temperatures in the Midwest are nearing an all-time record low as a powerful polar vortex drives a deep freeze across the eastern half of the United States. The bitter cold will bring below zero temperatures to a quarter of the continental U.S. Now, we have temperatures in Florida that are reaching freezing more often. Georgia, all the southern states are getting hit with cold. And this is not normal. They'll try to make it seem like it's normal because they don't want to send us into a panic, or they don't want to give us any confirmation on the knowledge that they have. But trust me, these people know. We'll get back into this, but basically says something unusual, but perhaps not so unusual on a large scale, is happening to our sun. Now here's another showing of the cycle. As you see, this cycle is getting smaller and smaller. And see, it's projecting. They're already projecting that in 2020, it's going to be at its minimum. So, spaceweather.com claims the sunspots have been absent for most of 2018, to the point where they feel that a reaction is coming from the upper atmosphere of the Earth, which in turn could reduce these temperature differences. It could happen within a few months if the current trend continues. Cold record in the space age could soon be established, says Martin Malzahn of NASA. Speaking of potential cold that could reach us, said that we are not close yet, but a matter of months is not so long. So this guy is saying that in a matter of months that we could see this drastic change, which that's kind of creepy. So now we're gonna get into Harvard scientists blocking out the sun. Now, why would they want to do that? We're going into a grand solar minimum. Why would they want to block out the sun? Are they trying to speed up our journey into the ice age? Now, just in case you think this is bullshit, this is a Forbes article. It's got plenty of views on it. It was just published December 5th, 2018, so it's only about a month and a half old. Now, a group of Harvard scientists plan to tackle climate change through geoengineering by blocking out the sun. The concept of artificially reflecting the sunlight has been around for decades, yet this will be the first real attempt at controlling the Earth's temperature through solar engineering, which we all know is bullshit. We see chemtrails every day that are blocking out the sun. They can't say that they're just getting ready to start this shit. Bullshit. Now, the project, called Stratospheric Controlled Perturbation Experiment, SCOPEX, will spend 3 million to test their models by launching a steerable balloon in the southwest, 20 kilometers into the stratosphere. Once the balloon is in place, it will release small particles of calcium carbonate. Plans are in place to begin launch as early as the spring of 2019. So it looks like coming up here in spring, they're going to get ready to get started on this project. So if they're already painting the sky with chemtrails, just imagine what they're going to do when they get these steerable balloons up into the air that they can control and will release calcium carbonate wherever they want, plus whatever else is in it. We don't know if it's just calcium carbonate. We have no idea what they're putting in this. There's no restrictions, there's no guidelines. Who knows who's even looking over this? Now, the basis around this experiment is from studying the effects of large volcanic eruptions on the planet's temperature. In 1991, Mount Pinatubo in the Philippines erupted spectacularly. I don't know why they think it's spectacular that a fucking volcano erupts, but releasing 20 million tons of sulfur dioxide into the stratosphere. The sulfur dioxide created a blanket around the Earth's stratosphere, cooling the planet by half of 0.5 Celsius for around a year and a half. I don't know what that means in Fahrenheit. I think it's probably about 2 degrees Fahrenheit if everything's right. They have a Simpsons episode, which it's so funny they put the Simpsons because the Simpsons are in so much predictive stuff as it is. But as scientists and governmental agencies around the world and environmental groups grow increasingly worried about our collective ability to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, which is more bullshit. Our planet for centuries has, controlled its own temperature. We don't have to go do that. Our planet does it on its own. The idea of geoengineering a solution has been more accepted. The ultimate goal is to reduce the warming on Earth, which is bullshit. This can be done by reducing greenhouse gas emissions, sucking the CO2 from the atmosphere, or limiting sunlight that reaches the Earth's surface. The first two methods are actively discussed and implemented to various degrees. The recent commitment of the G20 members, which is all the people trying to create the New World Order, and the United States was basically, they're saying that's the sole rejector to the Paris Agreement, will act to solve the source of the problem by reducing greenhouse gas emissions, sucking CO2 from the atmosphere and locking it away in Earth's crust, called CO2 sequestration, which has implemented and been destroyed Royal Dutch Shell has built a large carbon sequestration facility with Canadian and Australian governments. So this is all government operations throughout the world. They're all working together. They can't work on many things together. We always have problems, but they seem to come together for these, events that they like to do. The third method, blocking out the sunlight, has been controversial in the scientific community for decades. The controversy lies in the inability to fully understand the consequences. So they obviously do not know what the fuck this is gonna do. So that's kind of scary that they're just using this Earth as their own science experiment, and our children and further generations down the line, they'll have to figure out, if it all worked out or not. A reduction in global temperature is well understood and expected. However, there remains questions around this method's impact on precipitation patterns, the ozone, and crop yields globally. Now, on the East Coast here, we've had a lot of rain. On the West Coast, they had droughts. There's been so many anomalies in the weather going on. It's from the global geoengineering that they've been doing that they say they're just getting ready to start, which is a bunch of bullshit. Here I got a government paper. It's about weather and climate modification. It's the report of the Special Commission on Weather Modification from the This is the National Science Foundation. This is a government report. This is very, very old. There's a date somewhere on this, I believe. But it goes in to say, basically they had a meeting in the 60s talking about this. Oh, this article's from December 20th, 1965. And it goes in and it talks about all this different stuff, the introduction, the scientific possibilities, the biological implications, the social effects, the laws that they will have over this, the needs for opportunities and international cooperation and fiscal and organization consideration. So basically they've known that they could control the weather since the 60s. This is something that's been around for a very, very long time. Now, what is weather modification? Weather modification is the act of intentionally manipulating or altering the weather. The most common form of weather modification is cloud seeding, which increases rain or snow, usually for the purpose of increasing the local water supply. So this is something that they're able to do. They've been able to do it. They are doing it. And now they're saying that they're just getting ready to start doing it, which means that they're going to be doing it on a way larger scale than they already have been. So this is very, very scary stuff, people. This website right here is weathermodification.com, and it talks about how they got aerial cloud seeding, ground-based cloud seeding, a lot of different ways to do this. This is their clients and their projects. They have projects in Antigua, Argentina, Australia, Burkina Faso, Canada, Greece, India, Indonesia, Jordan, Mali, Mexico, Morocco, Saudi Arabia, Senegal, Spain, Thailand, Turkey, United Arab Emirates, and the United States. Oh, look at that. We're the number one people doing this. And look at all the people that they got down with this. Aeromet, L3 Communications, the U.S. Department of Defense. Why is the Department of Defense so worried about the weather? We got a couple other people. Let's see. Delaware Department of Agriculture, Cloud Seeding Program. Federal Aviation Administration. Illinois Weather Modification Projects, National NOAA, they're all part of it. Hurricane Center, have they been making hurricanes? Nevada State Cloud Seeding, Nevada, they probably had plenty of drought seeing that they are in the desert. Oklahoma, have they been creating tornadoes? That's right in Tornado Alley. Texas, North Dakota, Arizona. I mean, there's states all over that are down with this. There's government agencies. This is all documented. This is all real, people. And I know in one of the articles they were talking about what's the difference of, how much could it cool the earth. Now the difference says right here. In the shade, you may feel 10 to 15 degrees cooler. So they're saying blocking out the sun will only drop the temperature about 1.5 degrees. It says right here, 10 to 15 degrees cooler if you're in the shade. And then let's talk about all the implications of crops not getting the same amount of sun. We'll have to, find other ways to grow our crops. We'll have to either go indoors, or we'll have to, power things to run lights to grow crops. I mean, we're talking about large-scale famine and large-scale deaths all across the board. I mean, they're talking about all the way down to basically Georgia. We will be covered with ice almost like we're in Canada or Alaska nearly year-round. Our summer times will be very, very cold. I mean, we're talking about, just imagine a summer where every day is 10 to 15 degrees cooler. And then that happens for several years. And then you have everything cooling. The Earth's surface temperature is going to cool, which will also cause the water to cool. And if that happens over year, that's going to make us go down a big amount. So this is something that could be very catastrophic for us, people. And I just want to tell everybody, you need to be prepared out there. Not saying that this is going to happen, but you need to be preparing like it is going to happen. Because if you aren't prepared and this does happen, it's just going to be very bad for all civilization. I want to say God bless everybody. This is Mask from the Mask Truth, and I'm signing out.